Onboarding.
Yes.
So how do you use this for onboarding? You know, there's a few parts in the question there, so help us understand your onboarding process, how you use PI, documents you use in the software, and when do you introduce PI in the onboarding process?
Sure. So everyone's placard is at their desk on day one when they get to their desk for the first time. So it's there. So that's the very first, well, not the very first would be when they receive their behavioral profile in their interview. And then we back it up with the placard. And then we tour everybody around the building on their first day, so they come to see everybody's placards and where to, see that is something that is a constant throughout our building. And then we also, there's a lot of conversation between myself and the manager about individual PIs for a new hire and just what is going to be the best for that person. And generally, yes, their PI is matching what we're looking for, but just revisiting that PI and making sure that manager is just prepared with how they need to train that person and what that person's going to need to be successful right out of the gate. And then, like I said, we do have our statuses at 45, 90, and 100 days. So we open the communication up there. And as I said, we're going to be incorporating PI even more into those because that's really important to just keep hammering at it because it's not going away. Like, we love PI. Clearly. Yeah.
And I think too, one of the other pieces that I know working with one of the departments is the manager's development guide. Mm-hmm. So understanding that person and what they're actually going to need and all those different factors has actually been beneficial because then from day one, you know what expectations you have on yourself of what, as a manager, what you should be driving. The personal guide, lining that up and seeing the difference between that with the managers, I just know that that's one of the pieces that I was helping with. That again, it's kind of allowing us to create better career path development within our own company and seeing that projected growth of what someone is looking for. So those are my little 2 cents.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Good. 13 you answered, so thanks for that. This is always a little bit of a hot topic. I'm not asking this to stir the pot. I'm just looking for what you guys do. Remember, these are just best practices that we share, right? You don't have to do this. You're all going to have your own best practices as well. But I was just wondering, when making selections for roles, how much emphasis do you place on fit with the PI versus the job assessment?
I would say for our jobs that we have the most of, so like our account manager roles, our technical roles, we have those PI job assessments. Is that what they're called now? I'm like job assessments. I still call them PI pros.
That's
so
fine.
forgive me.
No, she's not.
I'm trying so hard to use the right language. For those roles that we hire all the time, like those are the PI patterns. Like, we know those are the successful patterns. Like, we look for those. Could they be a little bit off? Like for the B and C, maybe. But like the A and D, we place a lot of emphasis on those because they're the ones you can't change as easily or aren't as adaptable. So we're very much so into matching to the job pattern pro or job assessment. What gets interesting is when we're hiring for like a one-off role where we don't hire for that role very often. That one, some of those jobs we have like job assessments set up. And admittedly, some of them we don't, but I know what we're looking for, and I know enough about PI that I can kind of figure out the pattern that we need to bring in. And I like how the patterns are now named because it's much easier to talk about them. It's easy to go into that reference guide and really look at them very quickly. So for the most part, yes, we're using our job assessments. Keep in mind also that we have employees here, going back to the generations, that have been here long before we ever used PI. So we know that someone may not have the PI that we ideally want, but they have been successful here at Babb in that role for 25 or 30 years. So if it's a job where we're not getting a lot of resumes, I will look at other PI patterns because I know that person can be successful. but that's not the ideal situation.
Anything to add?
Yeah.
Pretty good? Yeah, so just to reiterate that, they do have positions internally that we know, we've taken data points, and I would say at least 6 years you guys have been with us. So we have data points on the specific roles that you can utilize. You can even look at the group analytics to see where things are at, really take a deep dive into some of those for those of you that are just new. You know those data points to be true with your top people. And you can also compare them to somebody that's not performing the role.
Like, oh, no, we don't want that.
So you know, okay, where's the wiggle room there? So as you continue to roll out your PI, especially if you're just new, looking at those roles that have a lot of people in a certain role and getting those data points. Don't guess, no, you can do that, we can get involved. You know, we've talked about it, hey, do we move it? Hey, when do we re-inspect it? Can we do some more analysis on it? All those things. Again, best practices around those things, not just guess. No, and you can do that with comparing them to top and bottom performers. You might not like the data, but like I say, it doesn't lie, right? It's data, and use it responsibly.
Well, I have another thing to add on that.
Absolutely.
So when I first started, I didn't know the patterns as well as I do now, and I actually pulled up all of our job assessments and I took the snippet tool and I snipped them and I made myself a cheat sheet on like a Word document, and I was able to easily pull that up for all the different departments and the job pattern pros that I needed to be looking for, and now I just know them. But at first that was kind of my way of being more efficient with that and making sure that I was getting the right pattern for that particular role. So I recommend doing that if you're not familiar with your patterns.
And I think it's important too, if you are creating a new job or looking at it again and reanalyzing what the position is, what's great is that you can have someone who's the manager, you can have HR, and then you can have someone who's actively in that role, and then someone who even works with that role, give that assessment of what the position is, because that really gives a good range of what you're looking for in that, rather than just what the manager is looking for, or what that, say it's an account manager, what they specifically think the role should be. So it definitely allows for a lot more, it allows more people to have a greater influence on that overall. So I mean, I think that's
All about the buy-in.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.